Hey guys, this is John again, and I think I've got some pretty cool stuff to share with everybody. So I'm going to be making a video. This video is going to be about uh, data transmission and single wire, uh, single wire data transmission in Minecraft, and some of the things that I came up with, and some of the capabilities that it has for systems like these. But anyway, so I developed two different systems so far based off of analog transmission lines. And this is, our transmission line here in the gray circuit. So even though it looks like it's two lines, technically it's a single line because it's just, it starts down there and makes a loop here and then ends right there. But the reason why it does that, the reason why we have two lines is because in this scenario, not only can we send data to something to store data or to perform a function, but in this case we can actually read data from something. And so I just kind of want to go over a little bit about the way the system works here and kind of give a little demo. So I'm going to be including a world download of this so people could play around with it and see how everything works. But this is going to be the first system that I'm going to show. And this system is based off of, of course, the analog transmission line. But what that means is that we can have one unit that we can use to control many other, in this case, I'll just call them nodes, independently. And so these nodes can be used for different functions. Of course, you can use them for data collection or for, controlling different functions and so the way that this first system works, because I have two that are based off of the analog lines, the first system works by using an address based on the signal strength, which is decoded by this little tiny thing here. So you can see that for every node that we have, so these are all our different nodes. For every node, they're always going to have this little signal strength decoder. And then after the signal strength decoder, it's going to have this, what I'm calling a bit stream decoder, I guess. So the way that this works is that we can send data at 1 bit per tick in this system. So we can, send data by pulsing. And this allows us to take a serial input. So they just, the power comes down the repeater line. And each different pulse is going to have a parallel output here, which is just locked into these D flip-flops. Okay, so I'll go ahead and start giving some demos here. So if we want to activate a various node, then we can just send a signal here. And so you can see that we sent a signal of 2, and it, arrived. So basic functionality, you can use it to send data, you can use it to send a binary signal or anything else that can be, controlled with an on and off, or even multiple functions. But if we want to get into something more advanced, so over here, the orange circuit, we can both read and write to it in 4 different bits. So let's say that we want to send a read function. Okay, and so for the orange circuit here, you can see that we have 1 and 2 saved, right? So let's just say that instead of reading that we want to go ahead and write to it. So we're going to write, just say a 3 and a 4. Okay, and so that signal is going to be sent down the line here. And if you look at the D flip-flops, so that's going to be our 1, our 2, our 3, and our 4. So we were able to write our 3 and our 4 there. And then we can go ahead and perform the read function again. and we can see what we have saved. Okay, so the way that all this stuff works, so first to get it out of the way, the signal strength decoder here, just say that you have an address based on signal strength. So technically you can only have 15 different addresses. Okay. Now what these different addresses can do is going to be all up to you. And I mean, you can have the same type of address. So don't think that it's only limited to having 15 different outputs. Okay. Because what that means is that, so say that this is just a 4-bit address, right? Well, if I altered the timing here, then I could actually have, just say for the green node, which is a signal strength of 1. So then say that I can actually send an 8-bit signal to this address, and then I can have 4 bits decoded here, and then I can go further down the line and have another node on the same address, and then have another 4 bits decoded there. So and then I could even include a function, so I could say that we could add a bit here, and I could say that if I want it to be at this address, then I could save the data. But if I want it to be at a different node, but on the same signal strength address, then I could have, another function to save the data over there. So even though we're only limited to 15 addresses, you are practically unlimited with what you can actually do with the address. Okay, so to get into some of the way that this stuff works, so the addressing system here. So because we want to differentiate between all of these signal strengths, right? So the only signal strength that is allowed to pass through this decoder is going to be a signal strength of 1. And, I'll be including a world download with this so you can see how these are made. But just keep in mind that the signal strength on this comparator, because this is our signal strength number 1 address, so we're going to have a signal strength of 1 here. And then behind this comparator in compare mode, we're going to have a signal strength of 2. Okay, so for address number 2, our input is going to be the signal strength number 2. So to activate it, we have a signal strength of 2 here, and we have a signal strength of 3 from this item frame going into this comparator. Okay, so whatever address you want it to be, that is going to be your number here, and then you always go with 1 power higher to go into this comparator here. Okay, and that'll work all the way up to signal strength of 14, and then of course for the 15th address, all you need is a comparator here with a signal strength of 14 to subtract from your line, because obviously the only thing that can pass through there is a signal strength of 15. Okay, so like I said, you can not only send data like we did here in a very simple form, you can send more complex data with functions. In this case, it's just a read or write function, but you can perform different tasks like, in this case, when we call for the read function, all we're doing is activating a function down here, which is going to send a signal up here to transmit our data. And so if you see this little transmitter here with the comparators and the repeaters, if you look at it, it's pretty much the exact opposite of our receiver, so they're very easy to make and very easy to design. And in this case, because to read the data, all I did was made another node here, and this has an address of 15. So when I want to read data, all I'm going to do is say, send a function here to read, which is going to send this out all the way down to a repeater here, which is going to give us a signal strength of 15 down the line, which is going to be this address. Okay, so it's very easy to call for data or to send different send different functions to control various things. To get into some more of the functionality of this system that I made, so this is all, even though this stuff is all, you know, the video here is not going to be about what all these nodes do and what I have it all made and programmed to do. The point of this video is going to be the system that allows this all to happen, which is this type of transmission system. Because if you wanted to look at it, so right here you see I just have one lever that can control multiple functions. So if we look at the table here, so we have a green node, blue, orange, and light green or lime green, whatever. So this one lever can control 4 different functions depending on what address or what node we want to send the function to. So if we were to make this, like a giant computer system that did not rely on the encoded transmission line, then imagine that every output that we wanted up here, we would have to have a redstone line coming from our control panel and going to, control every function on, these things. So it's, even though all this stuff does a lot, the whole point of this video is about the system that allows it to happen. Okay, so um, a little bit more advanced. So I have a sugarcane farm node. So we have 2 controls here to turn on 2 sugarcane farms. We have a read function, and then we have a kill all, which just turns everything off. But I had a special function made into the sugarcane farms, whereby using this hopper clock here, every so often, this is going to send a signal to transmit data back to our control panel. Okay, so what that means is that here you can see that the light's on. So for the sugarcane farm, we're actually reading the data that's actually happening at the sugarcane farm. So instead of just including a read function to where I could periodically flip it on and read what the sugarcane farm is doing, it's going to send that signal automatically. And this is just some of the functionality that you can have with a system like this. All right, so we're going to send a signal to activate a sugarcane farm, which you can see active right there. And then in a minute here, we can either wait for the hopper clock to transmit data, and we can see what's happening, which there it goes right now. I was going to say we can either do that or we could call for data. Okay, so for the sugarcane farm, you can see that farm 2 is running, and farm 2 is full on sugarcane. So the way that we deal with that is we have a sugarcane collection and bone meal node, which is the green node up there. So we can actually send a call to collect the sugarcane. Okay, and we can watch that happen in the background. So that node is going to trip, and it's going to send a minecart to go collect some sugarcane, right? And so when that sugarcane, comes down to a better level, to where the alarm isn't on, then our cart will, get filled up and then go back and not transmit, but it's going to deposit the sugarcane up into the top to where it can make some bone meal. And speaking of, so it looks like our bone meal, you see we just got a refresh here. So now it looks like our bone meal is running low. Speaking of, I think I'll just go ahead and turn the sugarcane farm off because I think we get the idea. So to turn it off, I'll just send the kill function. And you can see that cut off in the background. And then, I don't know when it's going to send a read function, but we can just go ahead and call for a read. Okay, so sugarcane farm 2 has just been turned off, but now bone meal is low. So let's see if we can do something about that. All right, so I want to send some bone meal, and I don't know where the carts are. Hopefully they don't collide in the track, because I'm switching a single track back there to send and send and receive the carts. Okay. All right, so even though this system is pretty complex, um, a lot of this stuff I just kind of came up with on the fly because I was like, okay, I want it to function like this. So we do have a lot of controls here, but so the general system, you're not, this is pretty much how you want to make it, right? Okay, so for each node, you can have a particular amount of outputs, right? So if we look here, we only have 2 outputs for the green node. Now I want you to see what I'm doing here, because I could have just made this a simple 2-bit output, but I left 2 other functions here that are blank, you know. And likewise with the orange node, I mean, it's so versatile. So we actually have 8 bits here. The first bit we're not using. The next 3 are used for functions, and then we have, excuse me, then we have the next 4 bits for data. But you know, if you look at our little output here to be able to read, you can see how many different outputs we have here, which is what 1, 2, which is I believe 9, because that has to match up with our node here, our 15 node for our data. So each different node, you can have different amounts of bits that control different things, and it's very versatile. Um, and so I want you to see just how expandable this system is. Like I have just a 4-bit section here, and then we have some 8 bits or an 8-bit section there. But this system can be made up to, so far, can be made up to 32 bits. And this system, if you see the way that this is made, this is exactly the same as the 4-bit. And including the latching system here, you got 2 repeaters, the 2 comparators for the fade out, and then a 1-tick generator. So that latching system, if we go back and look at the 4-bit, you see that's the exact same thing. So 2 repeaters at 2 ticks, the fade out, and then the 1-tick generator. So the only difference is you're going to see that this right here is a block on the 32-bit one. Okay, so for the proper timing, you could go up to, I think, 20 bits just by using dust here, right? But if you want to go up to 32 bits, you just have to put a block here, which is going to increase the fade, the fade duration. But anyway, that's all you would need to do. And, see that with 32 bits, I mean, I don't have 32 different bits on the input, but I could just make a simple little node here, a simple little address. I could plop that whole 32-bit decoder down right here, and then I could use that for pretty much anything. So I could use that to collect data. So each node could send data to the 32-bit thingy, and it could collect data and tell me, how many times I've collected sugarcane or whatever. Or, I could have it to where anytime this address is updated with new data, then it could send the old data, uh, you know, or it could send the new data collected here, and we could have a readout of how much data we've had over time, something like that. I don't know. It's only limited to your imagination what you want this stuff to do. But again, like I said, it's not about the farms or about anything else that you can run off of it, but the system itself that allows you to do that. And so just to show you how all this works, the way that I made these D flip-flops, we're going to have a single 1-tick output coming out of this comparator. Oops. So whenever we transmit a signal, this is only going to have a pulse length of 1 tick. So obviously to go into these D flip-flops, you have to have a 2-tick repeater here. But the way that we can look at this is being 2-bit sets. So of course with 32 bits, you're going to have 16 sets of 2, right? And the reason why this matters is because each of these 2 bits are going to be activated at the same time. And why that matters is because if you want to expand the system to have more than like 8 bits or whatever that is, 7 bits, whatever. Yes, 7. So you're going to have to put a repeater up here on the latching line, right? Because normally that would be dust. So the way that you make one of these systems is that you make it all out and you put repeaters down here on the bottom for every block, you know. So for 32-bit, I would have 32 repeaters down here, okay? And then if you want to determine how much signal strength you're going to need up on the top, then you have to put a signal strength of 14 here because we're going to have either 14 or 15 here. But so we'll just give it a signal strength of 14, and we're going to see where the signal dies. Okay, so it dies right here. So between these 2 sets, you can see that that one's not getting power, so the torch is still on. So between 2 sets of bits, I'm going to put a repeater up here. Okay, so that will allow our signal to continue, but now to correct the timing on the bottom, I'm going to remove that repeater and put dust there. Okay, so you cannot remove the repeaters between the sets, you know, because that's not going to work, or between the bits like that. So you have to leave a repeater there, but you can remove the repeater and put dust here to correct all the timing. Okay, so it's very simple to make these. They're very easy to you know, do because between 4 bits to 32-bit, whatever, it's practically everything is practically the same except for, you know, 1 block there, right? So let's go ahead and demonstrate how this works. So this is the actual bit streaming that we are feeding to the address. Okay, so for every address, this is the way that we are transmitting the data. You always have a first initial carrier signal, which is going to be that observer. And then after that, you are going to have each one of the bits that you want to transmit. And if you want to transmit a large amount of bits to where you know, you're going to have over 15 length of dust down here. And of course, you could use any type of transmitter that you like. But this is fairly easy to do because we can just use observers to do the timing. So you're going to have to break, if you have a large input, you're going to have to break it down in sections to be able to read the signals off of it. And so the way that you do that is by you know, correctly timing the repeaters down here. So you would have to play with your repeater timings back here to make it do what you want to do. But in this case, the way that I did it was I broke down all the inputs into sections of 8, you know. So 32 outputs or 32 inputs, you're going to have 4 sections of 8 different bits. So after I broke that down, then I said, you know, well, this one I'm going to need a repeater here so that I can bring all these bits out to the output. So if I have to have a repeater there, then I'm going to have, well, technically you're going to have a repeater coming off of each one, you know. But because I have an extra observer here to carry the signal, you know, the initial pulse time signal, so I have an extra repeater here, an extra observer, that's going to give us an extra 1 tick. So to make up for that, I'm going to have to add another repeater here, right? And then so we have an extra tick here between these 2 sections, so I'm going to have to add another repeater. So I have my first repeater to match the timing of this one. I have this second repeater to match the timing of that observer. So because we have 2 repeaters down there, I'm going to have 2 repeaters here. But because we have another extra observer, I'm going to have to add another repeater here, you know, and on and on and on up till you have 4 repeaters here. and then everything just comes out to a single repeater to feed our bitstream line. Okay, so I know that's a little overly complicated, but I have it all laid out so anybody can download the world and play around with the stuff and see how it all works. And mainly because this is all new. I haven't seen anybody that made any type of a bitstream decoder that was capable of, sending up to 32 bits. And honestly, with some modifications to the latching circuit, you could probably send more, with bitstream like this. So I'm sure you could send over 32 bits, and it would probably be as simple as just adding another repeater here. Well, maybe not there. Let's see. Yeah, I would have to add a repeater here, something like that. Or add another repeater at 2 ticks to get a signal from that. But anyway, I haven't tested that, so I don't know for sure. But it's very, very easy to work with. So anyway, yeah, this is the first type of system. It's very versatile. It's very easy to use and to design things, design control systems based off of this. So some of the things I didn't mention. So first of all, this does have one downside so far that I would still need to correct. And this doesn't have any congestion protection. So I need to develop some type of system in the future that determines, okay, if we already have information coming down the line, then we can wait for a certain amount of time before this can transmit data. And the reason why is for systems like this, where they automatically transmit data, then I would rather have that wait. If we have any traffic on the line, I'd rather have that wait until the traffic is over before causing, collision problems. But so, like I was saying, it's very versatile. If you wanted to, instead of having a readout here, I don't know if I mentioned it, but of course, instead of having a readout to where it just goes to my display here, you could actually have this send a signal to the next, you could have a different node here, like a storage node. And so, like if you have a farm, like a wool farm or whatever, and you could have multiple functions. So with a wool farm, you could say, I'm full on wool, so send a minecart to come pick some up. Or you could have it say, I don't know, I have a dispenser that is out of shears. Can you send the shears or send more shears to, come fill up the dispensers. So you could have completely automated systems based on this type of transmission. All right, so to get into the next section, so that first section was based off of addressing developed around the input signal strength. And then we sent 1 bit per tick to that address as information. So this is going to be inherently different. This was the first type that I came up with. And the way that this works is that we send 4 bits per tick because we're actually transmitting our information based on the signal strength, but then we have to control our addressing based on the timing. So I'll just give you a little overview of how this works. So with this system, and it's not the greatest system, this does have a lot of downfalls. But first of all, with the way that I made these, so imagine that you have an observer, your first observer, just like with the other one, you're going to have like a carrier, and then each tick after the observer fires is going to be a different address. Okay, so you're gonna have your first address here. 2 ticks after the observer, you will have your second address here. 3 ticks after your third address, 4 ticks after your fourth address, and on and on. And if you wanted to have, 20 different addresses, you would have to have, 20 repeater ticks of delay and timing. And that's what makes this much more complicated and much more difficult to actually use, because this design that I have here, you can see that I have up to like 6 outputs based on this design, but really that's all it's good for. To go up to 8 outputs, you'd have to have a different configuration, and just say if you wanted something like 20 different addresses, you would have to do a lot more work to get it to function. And I mean, honestly, because you're only sending 4 bits of data at a time, it's not, in my opinion, this could be expanded, but to do more things. But in my opinion, with 4 bits at a time, it's just not that, it's not like with the other one where I can just send a single signal of 32 bits. You know what I mean? But anyway, so for this system, to just give you a demonstration, so the light is turned off. So if I flick this lever, it will come on. And the reason why, with 3 repeaters up here, I am set to the address of 4. Okay, so right now the address of 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all turned on. But if I remove that repeater, then number 4 is going to turn off. Okay, so that'll turn off. And then, it doesn't matter what's happening with the other ticks. Those can do whatever they want. Because if I have 4 there, it will turn on. If I take away 4, it will turn off. Okay, and to adjust the timing, so for the first tick of delay, you have 0 repeaters. If you want to go to the second tick, you add 1. Third tick, and then fourth tick, you have 3. Okay, and so some of the things that I had to develop for this is going to be like this D flip-flop that can actually store a signal. Anything from 1 through 15, and it can do that in a 1-tick input pulse. Okay, so a 1-tick pulse with a signal strength of 15, so that got saved. And if we just come further down the line, 1-tick in pulse of whatever that signal strength is, and it will automatically clear the 15 and save the lower signal strength. So anyway, if we'll just go ahead and give you a demo. So because we're able to send 4 bits per tick, we can send a lot of information very quickly, but you cannot do, in my opinion, you can't do very much with it because it's only 4 bits. So you can't have a lot of control functions and things like that. And it's always straight up 4 bits. So you can't, have for one register, just have 6 bits, and then for the other one you can only have 4 bits and then 10 bits on the next address. You can't really do that. It's just straight up 4-bit. But anyway, so to show you how this works, we're just going to select some various signal strengths here, and let's make that signal strength a 1, and then for the third one we can go up to 15, and whatever. So the 5th one is going to be the red coder. So just let's go to signal strength of 4. And then finally, you can also transmit binary through this system. So this is a system to convert binary into signal strength that I saw from a Japanese YouTuber named Inoki Love. And this is a very, very compact system. It's very easy to use. You just have your binary input coming into this little section, and it will automatically convert it to signal strength. And that's regardless of this transmission system. So if you wanted to send 4 bits from one place to another, and you didn't want to use 4 different transmission lines, then you can just simply encode it to a signal strength. And then this is a decoder based off of his, but his was much more compact than this. But you could just have that signal strength coming into this little decoder, and then wherever you need your 4-bit signal to go, then you can just have output from that. So it's very easy to do a lot of this stuff. But anyway, so if we can send the data, and then you can see how our 4-bit signal matches our output there. And likewise, all of our inputs are going to be properly displayed on all the registers. So very good for storing data, for sending and receiving data very quickly in terms of 4 bits. Um, but obviously it's not as easy to deal with, and it's not as comprehensive as the previous system. So anyway, to get into the last thing in the video that I wanted to show, so this is the beast. This is the lag monster here. Um, so uh, the reason why I made this, I was inspired by another YouTuber named Redstone Stuff, and I'll go ahead and put his video in the description. But he made a couple of videos. So he made a first video that said, how much data can you send through one analog line? And of course, because 0 through 16 or 0 through 15, you can transmit 4 bits of binary because it can be just like with the Noki Love thing. Uh, binary can be 4-bit can be directly converted into signal strength and then transmitted and then decoded further down the line. But he made a second video that said how much data or whatever can you transmit through 3 analog lines. So 12 bits, he used the 3 lines coming into a giant decoder to decode the 12 bits into 4,096 different outputs. Okay, so the equivalent of what I have here. So I was like, okay, so if he can do that, if he can send 12 bits in 3 lines, then I can send more than that in 1 line, because you can actually transmit 4 bits per tick. So that means in 1 second, in 1 second in Minecraft here, you can transmit 40 bits of information. So like I said, with this type of transmission, you can transmit a lot of information very quickly. 40 bits is a lot of info for this, but so yeah, so a single transmission line, we can transmit, in this case, a little over 14-bit. So I got some info here. So for everything that I have there, we have 24,576 unique outputs. We are 2 stacks shy of being 15-bit. And of course, it's a miracle of the clone command. So my initial goal was to try to make a 16-bit decoder. But to make an actual 16-bit decoder, so we have 6 different stacks of over 4,000 outputs. So if I wanted to up this to 16-bit, I would have to have a total of 16 of these, okay? Which I just wasn't going to do. But just to give you a quick demonstration of how this works, in case anybody wants to play with it, you select your inputs here, and so we can change the location of where a light is going to be lit up out of all this 24,000 whatever outputs. Only 1 light is ever going to be on at a time. So let's say that we want to change our signal strength. Let's go back to the last stack. We want to change our depth to, let's just go back to 15, which is going to be the very last row and the last stack, and we can change the height up to 15. So that'll just make it easier to find the light. Okay, and so I'm going to fly with the redstone signal here. So hopefully it won't, break, because when you're, sending signals like this over such a long distance with this much lag, it has a tendency to, kind of poop out. But anyway, so we can see it working its way up a lot slower than you would imagine, just because of the amount of lag here. Okay, so we selected our proper height. We selected the signal strength of 2, and hopefully we will get a signal strength of 2 back here to let us know that at least the redstone didn't break. So there you go. By changing the coordinates, you can, of course, change the position of the lamp, and, whatever. It's just, honestly, it's just a proof of concept, to just, show how much data can be transmitted. But, so like I said, there is going to be a world download of this in case anybody wants to play around with it. And this big thing back here, you can just ignore. This is just, this was a little thing that I was playing with to, so if you saw Noki Love's thing up there, his little encoder and decoder from signal strength to binary. So this was the old method to convert signal strength into binary. You have to have a red coder, and then from there you have to have that encoded or decoded back into a binary signal. So it was kind of a big and bulky pain. But with red coders, you are actually able to send a signal very quickly. And what it's doing is I just have a signal strength that's growing from 1 up to 11. So yeah, we have 11 different inputs here. And so my signal strength here, if you can see when that repeater turns off, that is giving us a number 1 through 11. So red coders are able to change their signal within 1 tick. So in each tick, we are getting a binary signal out here that is going to be the binary number from 1 through 11. So it doesn't, do anything. It's just a toy just to see how fast binary can, or how fast the red coders can react. But anyway, so that's here if anybody wanted to play around with it. But otherwise, like I said, as far as transmitting actual data, I think this system is probably the best because it's the easiest to work with. Wherever you want to, you can run a line, run a transmission line, and then just plop down your node coming off of that. It's very easy to adjust. But if you're interested, be sure to check out the world download, and you can see how all this stuff works. So that is it for now. So thank you for watching. Hope this wasn't too long, but it's a lot of info. So I will see you in the next video.